Hey, welcome to another episode of the Fit Growth Machine podcast. I'm Brian Raisentul, your host, and today I'm going to interview Monica Sharma. She's an e-commerce brand mentor and consultant, a purpose-driven digital brand marketing and strategy professional with 17 years of global experience building brands. That's a lot. She's worked across diverse sectors and companies from Fortune 500 to scale and startups. Before talking to her, let me tell you that this episode is brought to you by BSR Digital. At BSR Digital, we help e-commerce brands that want to scale their business to the next level through Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. Yes, even after the iOS 14 update. Now more than ever, we need to understand that it's really important to level up the marketing and design a solid strategy, and we're going to cover that with Monica as well, as what used to work doesn't anymore. So if your e-commerce brand lacks a solid plan and professional team to increase sales, we can help the same way we have helped more than 1,000 brands like yours for over a decade. To learn more, you can visit us at bsrdigital.com, and you can also email us at hello@bsrdigital.com. Now, as promised, I have Monica here with me. Thanks for being here in the show.
Hi, Brian. So nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So, why don't you start by telling the audience more about your story, your background?
Yes, so I'm based here in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. I have worked in this industry for over 17 years, like you already said, but I really started with in the corporate field, brand management, launching new brands on the market, managing heritage brands, moved into strategy consulting, which, it's growth and expansion strategies, and then worked in global marketing, where it was really about strategizing for brands, positioning them, finding the right people and skills in the right places. I actually decided to go on my own and started my own online store for a while, whilst I continued freelancing. But I realized quite quickly that I was following this old dream from my teenage years to leave like the corporate world, and my heart was really in building brands and helping other businesses. And I really love seeing the impact when I help small businesses. So I started using all the skills I had to just niche down and work on both smaller businesses, smaller entrepreneurs. Some of them, are the founders themselves, and also work continuing to work with scale ups. So some people trying to hit their first six figures, some trying to grow to seven, and then worked. Google hired me to work with some of their premium partners, seven figure plus businesses, and recently also just finished, working with a big e-commerce platform across 15 countries in Europe who's selling refurbished iPhones, and that was also a fantastic project. So really working across small entrepreneurs to scale ups. So I love seeing the impact I can immediately have when I help them, and really on foundationals who's helping you with your brand positioning and growth strategy so that you can really position yourself correctly in the minds of your customer and bring them back.
Yep, exactly. We are going to talk about that and more. But before doing that, you mentioned you are from Amsterdam or you live there.
Yes, I'm from here.
I love
I'm
this.
Dutch by birth.
I love the city. I love the city. I mean, it was a beautiful city. I mean, it's a beautiful city, but I was there a few years ago. It was like really, really cold. It was winter. The lake was like the lakes were frozen, and it was like, man, my wife was hating me back then. It was like, man, it's too cold up here. But it was lovely. I've been there, I think, twice, and I can go over and over again. It's
It's
beautiful.
a great city, and the best time to come is the spring and summer, though. I will tell you that.
Don't tell my wife. I know, I know. Probably I went like those two times in winter. So I'm like,
Ooh,
the one was worse than the other one in terms of the cold. But yeah, I love it.
okay.
I love it. I can tell you one thing. I love learning new languages all the time. My English is
Yeah,
not my first language either. So it's like I I didn't even try to learn Dutch, right? Because it's like, okay, no, but you know, even saying the names of the streets was like an impossible mission. It was like, okay, here's the paper, here's like the written, like
this is
the
where I need to
even
go. I
writing
get it.
the
Yeah,
address was like, okay, I think it's something like Strat or whatever. It's like, but you you
yeah,
you let me know. So, but it was really fun. It was really fun.
yeah. Well, next time, make sure to plan your trip in the summer and go to all the cool like summer events they have here. That's the best time to come.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. But yeah, going back to e-commerce, going back to branding and growth, I think that
Yes.
I don't know what's your take on this, but I think it's some other aspects of building, a business are overlooked or underestimated. So people sometimes want to go too fast and they forget about some really, really important things like building the brand, as you mentioned. So I just want to ask you, what does it mean? I mean, what does building a brand really mean?
Building a brand, well, brand is all about the perception of what what your customers think about you, and that's what it really comes down to. What is it in their mind that they're thinking about you when they speak about you as a company and as a business, as a product? It's all the perception of the customer, which is the reality, and that's what a brand is. And what people forget, I think, and this is what you said, I love that, because we're so used to trying to go so fast nowadays, and that's why you see a lot of businesses actually failing, is because they're trying to go too fast and forgetting some of this foundational stuff. But it still takes 3 to 5 years to build profitable businesses. And if you want a long-term sustainable business, really figuring out, who your customer is, what your brand stands for, and then translating that to the messaging, the ads, the content, and everything you're putting out there is so important. And it's sometimes those activities that are not immediately driving ROI, which are the most crucial to building your business. So for me, brand is like one of the first key pillars to focus on when you're building that business of yours.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, she said 3 to 5 years, not days, not weeks,
Not
not
this.
months. It takes time, right? And but hang in there because we're going to give you like a breakdown of the process, right? But it's yeah, it's true. I mean, many people we interviewed in the podcast, they even they came up with some innovative products, right? And even the process of patenting the new products took like years and years, not only building a brand and a business. So things take time and iterations, and pivoting from these audience or products or solutions to the other one. But there are some really important things we need to consider, right? So when growing a business, people want to go to the numbers. I want to get as you said, I don't know, 6 figure, 7 figure, whatever figure business, but they forget about the fundamentals, who they want to serve, what solutions they're providing them with, and many
Yeah.
other. So, do you think that there's like some key elements that they need to keep in mind when talking about business growth?
Well, business growth. So I like working with three key pillars, and there's a bonus pillar as well. But we'll start with the three, which is really your brand. So I always say you sell so much more than a product. It's a lifestyle, it's experience, maybe even a movement. People buy you because of how they feel. So who's your customer? Why are they buying? And what do you stand for as a brand? And what really makes you different? Why you? Why should I buy from you? Answer that for them. And then the second pillar is all about having a clear plan. What's that growth strategy? Look at your numbers. If 1%, I always say if 1% is the average conversion rate in e-commerce, it means 99% are leaving without buying. So what are you supposed to do to get those 1% to keep coming back and maybe convert a little more of those 99%? So look at your numbers across, the customer journey, and given the customer that you know and you're targeting and what you stand for, how can you bring them back? What are the key messages, the triggers and barriers across that you need to address to keep bringing them back for more, and hopefully that they bring others along with them. And the last one is really taking consistent action. It's better to take slow action, something small every single day or every 2 days, than trying to go super fast for 2 weeks and then stop, right? So consistent action where you keep going back to that customer. Who am I serving? Why are they buying? And those numbers and testing all along the place. So combining those three pillars together. And then the bonus pillar obviously is having the right systems, automations, and people and processes in place underneath that to make this work. But I think this is a great place to start when you're growing a business. And it's a cycle, it keeps going on and on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean what you're saying is really important because I always, I come from the computer science background, and one thing I learned and I still keep is to plan on paper, let's say before starting to code or writing code. And it's important to extrapolate that here is like you need to start planning on paper, who do you serve, what's your mission, your vision, your core values, what you stand for. That's really important, not only for earning money, but and getting customers, but also for hiring the right team and many other things. People don't buy products anymore. Only people buy from experiences. Brands collaborate with other brands. They collaborate with creators, and there's an ecosystem created around collaboration, building a community or building loyal customers. And we are going to talk about that in a sec. But it's not just a brand. Whereas probably a few years before, and this is like, I don't know if the system's fault, let's say, but during COVID and even before COVID, probably we were approached by many, new companies trying to, set up a store with some random products because they were, I don't know, drop shipping companies, and they had a degree of success. But now things have changed. And if you don't level up the marketing, the branding, and many other important things, it's not as easy as before. And it's not scalable, right?
No, absolutely not. And I loved how you said the extrapolating from, the work you do on paper before you actually start going into the computer and doing things. And, this actually reminds me of the recent research, I think it was early this year, that Shopify had released. And they actually wrote that rising acquisition costs are forcing brands to have foster long-term relationships. And I was just thinking, why are we even doing that only now because acquisition costs are rising? This is something, if you should always be doing, fostering those long-term relationships, right? And yes, you may start drawing things out on paper, and as the business grows, as you grow, as the economy changes, things may change. That's fine, but you need to have that starting point and then keep testing and tweaking as you go, right? That's a really big part of it.
Yeah. And something else, that brands have recently added to their vocabulary is customer loyalty. Because it's like somebody buys once, and it's like, hey, jackpot, they bought. See you, And how can we change that and change, occasional, customers into forever fans of your brand?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to really come down to connection, creating a really strong connection with them. And how do you do that? Well, first and foremost, getting to know who they actually are. Who are your customers? Who are my customers? Who are buying from me? So, most people will be, those ideal customer personas. And I keep going back to this, is that an ideal is something in your imagination. Look it up in the dictionary, you'll find that definition there. So find out who your real customers are, real, who are actually the ones buying. Reach out to them, do customer interviews, not just surveys, because surveys will give you some amount of information, but to be able to dive deep, you really need to speak to them. Good old customer research. Speak to your customers. Who are they? Why are they buying? Why are they maybe not buying or not coming back? What's stopping them? What do they like? What are their needs, wants, and desires? How do they behave within my category, and what really makes them happy? Figure that part out.
How do you typically advise e-commerce brands to structure that part of, getting in touch with their customers? Do you encourage them to do post-purchase surveys? Do you encourage them to call them, to do polls, or how do you?
Yeah, so if you have never done this yet, I would say reach out to part of your data. You can obviously send out a general email to maybe the most recent people who have bought from you, or it depends. I think get a mixture of people who have your loyal customers, people maybe who have bought occasionally, and some, you've seen maybe engaging with your email list but haven't been buying. So a nice different buckets that way, so that you get people at different stages of the journey. Reach out to them via email, write them an email. If it's a small amount, you can write personal emails. Otherwise, you can also obviously do a email blast to everybody, but I always say pick out a handful and do some personal emails and reach out to them, and get them on the phone or a video call, or if you are in proximity to them, you can always do face to face, but really speak to them face to face, I would say, as much as possible.
Yeah, totally agree. I think I first heard this from Jack Ma, Alibaba's founder. And it's like, in order to do scalable things in the future, you need to start to do non-scalable things,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. And the surveys, are great. And I'm not saying never not to do them, but you need to combine them with this, because what you can do is in surveys and even your numbers, they'll show you where opportunities are, why people maybe but you can't dive into the motivations behind it, the actual why. When you speak to people, it allows you to go that level deeper and really speak to your customers.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's important to know, I mean, to be open about their feedback, to leave your ego aside, I think, right? And to ask the right questions, right? If you
Yeah.
ask the wrong question, do you like the product? Yes. Okay, thank you. Happy customer. It's like, so I don't know if you have an example of questions to ask, but I think that it's not like only yes or no questions, right?
Oh, absolutely not. So there are two things I do. I have my desires over demographics framework, which I call. So I have the four types of questions to ask your customer, the four D's. So it's really the demographics because you always want that information, but then the desires. What do they really want? What's going on in their life? What makes them happy? What could be their struggles? Just getting to know that person. What how do they behave within your category, right? Where are they buying from? If they bought from you, how did they find you? What are the triggers and barriers that are promoting them to keep buying from you? How do they feel about it? Which allows you to go into the emotions. And then delight, which is really what makes them happy when they're either buying from you, or maybe if they're buying from competitors. What's that thing that's really lighting them up as well, so that you know what to focus on more as well? What are they telling others about you? So these four buckets is really what I focus on. And then I use a technique as well called story probing, where I invite my customers to tell me stories. So there's no yes or no questions yet. You can use those as follow-up questions, but really inviting people to tell you stories, because stories are, why do we use it in marketing? It's memorable. It goes to a deeper level, emotional connection with your customers. So when you ask people to tell stories, they'll tell you what is important to them, what they remember, and it will allow you to really dive into not what they're just saying, or but also what they're actually doing, thinking, and feeling. So really using stories to do those research interviews. It's like speaking to a friend often. And then you can use more direct questions to follow up on the areas that we need to.
Yeah, and I mean, it's very on point. I mean, what you're saying, because it's not only about the message; it's about how that makes you feel, and that's what you remember, right? So
Yeah.
that's really important. And I'm curious, customer loyalty, it's a powerful thing to achieve, right? And of course, it's easier said than done. It's sometimes people or brands want to get loyal customers, but then they don't know how to go about it. So how can they demonstrate value for getting more loyal customers, or what kind of actions can they, you know, take?
Yeah. So I think there's the one where you still need to define that value that you really offer, and then second is the actual, how do you translate that into
Okay.
actual, messaging and content. So in terms of, once you know who the customer is, why they're buying, you know what you want to be as well as a brand, right? What is your purpose? Translate that into a clear brand. Why should they be buying from you? So what makes you unique? What's really different about you? As well as what are the benefits? And benefits, I take it further than just what people traditionally call functional benefits, what your product does, but also up to, emotional. How does it make them feel? Transformational. How does it affect their life? And then even societal, which links to your purpose. Therefore, what does it do for society? So what are those key benefits, and across this benefit ladder, that you really offer them together with your differentiation is really the value you bring them. And that also is what you then translate into messaging, copy, content, ads. And often, I don't know, maybe you've heard this more often as well, is like, we bring people on emotions. That's how we attract them, with the stories, with the feelings, and the emotions. But the further down the funnel you take them, the more rational they become. They need to have logic, and they need to rationalize that purchase. So I always say the more emotional and transformational benefits is what you use for the stories, the storytelling, and really attracting people to, hey, what's in it for me? And then feeling like there is something inspiring them. And the more you go towards the conversion and you need to take them to that funnel, the more sometimes you need to bring in a bit of that logic and, okay, this is exactly what the product does, and these are my product features, and this is what I do. So this is how you can also translate it into different content pillars for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, agree totally. And what about, the dream customers? We have discussed already about, how to get loyal customers, to buy again and again, and how to, implement some actions to make that happen and how to interact with them. But what about, the dream customers? Because you can get, some one-time customers that probably bought for somebody else, but then they will never buy from you again. But what about the dream customers that you want for your store? How do you put that together? Do you have like a technique, framework, or something to help brands identify their real avatar, what they want, what they don't want? How do they validate that, or how do they
Yes.
validate and learn what they want, to
So
buy really?
really coming back to, I think it's a combination of looking at your numbers, the ones who've been buying the most, what are they buying, and what are they coming back for, and how frequently. Your metrics will show you, those, okay, this products are working well, and this is how frequently they come. So really looking at the metrics on the one hand, and then going back, combining it with those customer interviews and the insights that you get. What is that? So why are these products working, and who are these customers of mine that are the ones buying again, and what is really driving them to do that again? So using that combination, and then you can translate a lot of that into the messaging again that you put out in your ads and content to attract more people like that. And so it's really coming back to, again, knowing who your customer is. It's something I'll keep going back to.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we are definitely in an era of, we need to value our customers more than we used to, right? Probably many brands underestimated them for a long time, and now it's really important to focus not only. I mean, everyone talks about ROAS and decreasing customer
Yeah.
acquisition costs, but that's only half of the battle or less. What about, increasing the average order value, making them come back for more, or reduce the time between purchases, increasing the lifetime value, and not everything is, sending them promotions, right? It's way more than that. And yeah, do you see the same things with your customers?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the people I work with and who come to me, they're doing all the right things. They're doing the traffic, they're getting those couple of thousand traffic to the website a month. They're doing the ads, they're doing the content, and they feel like they're on their hamster wheel. So all the time, but they're just not able to sometimes get to the next level of growth that they want. And the key thing is, often for me, it's really simple. Most of them don't know who they're really speaking to. They may think they do, but they've never done the exercise. So they can, until they actually speak to their customers, they realize, wait, this is who I'm really speaking to, and this is why they're buying or not buying. And I always love saying the keys to your business are right in front of you. You just need to know where to look. So I'd love to give a concrete example with a client I worked, how it worked. So this was a client of mine. She sends baby carriers. So yeah, so she was targeting moms, and she built a multi six-figure business through only new traffic. So her repeat customer rate was 10%. She was doing all the right things. She was doing the retargeting. She was emailing. She had a list of 10,000 people. She had an active Facebook community. Yet she was not able to get people to buy again. And she couldn't understand why that was happening. So when we worked together, I actually got her to do all the customer interviews. I said, reach out to your community and speak to them. And I helped her with the questions, etc. But then one thing we realized, all the people she was speaking to, they were experienced moms. So the people who were second, third, or fourth child. And the first time moms is not the one she was speaking to. So a lot of these people were like, okay, we were maybe on our last child and we don't need these products again. So I said, now you have two options. We need to figure out what you need to do to reach the first time moms, or you need to change your product portfolio to cater to these moms with other products so you can get more purchases. So she really wanted to figure out about, okay, these first time moms. So I said, let's go back. And she did another shout out in the community and reached out to people. Hey, are there first time moms here? Can I speak to you? Um, and they were there. They were on her list. They were in a community. They were hanging around, but they were not buying. So when she spoke to them, what turns out is buying these baby carriers is so overwhelming for them. The experienced moms had experience buying it from other places before and knew what they wanted now. And there was a reason they were coming to her store, and we figured that out as well. But the first time moms wanted help. They needed to be guided to, like, which works for me well, what not. I get so overwhelmed to make this choice. And her website wasn't catering to that kind of help yet. So, and not nor her emails, nor her stories. So that's when we realized she needed to change some of her content. We added like a rating system to her products. Advanced, this is easier to use and start off for first time moms. This is more advanced. And then also telling more stories in your emails and really working with and create and as a next step, a quiz even to help you make a choice for where you are in the journey with your child and what would work for you. So absolutely changing content towards helping her customers. But she couldn't have figured that out. So she was constantly testing, testing, and testing. Like just like what you said. We're focusing on the ROI only versus doing something which is not as scalable, speaking to your customers and saying, what's stopping you from buying? Um, and that started changing her business.
I love those transformation stories because it's not luck. It's not changing an ad. It's actually, changing the fundamentals of a business and going,
Yeah,
really in depth when it comes to, the avatar, what they want, what they don't want, how they want it, and what to change, which is everything else, probably the offer or the communication, the message, like the landing page or whatever, right? Around that to make it work. And things start working, and it's not magic. It's like you going and doing, the non-scalable work, which is,
yeah,
talk to your customer, ask them what they want. Um, so that's a great story. And I remember, a book by the book that Alex Hormozy released. I've been following the guy for, I don't know, over a year now. The guy is great. I don't know if you know who he is. Alex Hormozy. He's in the, yeah, in the gym space, but he's like becoming well known in the U.S. at least, and maybe worldwide as well, with great advice on business. And his book, $100 million Offers, actually blew my mind around that, because some of the principles are still the same, but the way he put it together and aligned with what you said of, not only identifying the avatar, but thinking about what they need before and after buying your product, right? And the reasons, so maybe they are stuck and they don't buy your product because of what they needed before, and
yeah,
guidance, help, or information, whatever, right? And probably what they needed after, I don't know how to use it, and
yeah.
many things that are not related to your product directly, but to their experience. And also that will give you tips on what products to create next. It could be physical products, it could be info products, some guides for the next masterclass. It could be collaborating with people around tips for new moms. I don't know, whatever, right?
Exactly. No, absolutely. And like you said, until then, she was changing her ads. She was constantly changing her headlines, but without knowing what it should be. And I think that's where we need to move from just guessing to educated guesses, and just really knowing again who those customers are, why are they buying, why not, and translating that then consistently across different aspects of your business. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that everything's going to convert again from one day to another. It's still going to take a little bit of testing to get the right words, but again, your customer interviews can give you the right words to use as well.
Um, I think for everyone listening who probably have never taken the time to talk to your customers, what do you say? Should they start doing it now?
Get right away. I want to see those emails go out, and I want to see everyone speaking to at least a few customers. And I have a link to that handy guide with the 4 buckets of D's, so they can download that to get started on what questions to ask.
Awesome. Monica, I really enjoyed the conversation. You were great. Thanks for being here on the show. Before you go, I just wanted to mention to everyone listening or watching this video that don't forget to go to fitgrowthmachine.com or bsrdigital.com/podcast, and you will find the episode there with the show notes and the resources that were mentioned. And also will include, of course, all the links to Monica's website and the links to these guides that you're mentioning. So please tell the audience where they can go to learn more about you and your company.
Yep. So you can visit me on my website, businesswithmonica.com. I am active on Instagram under the same handle and on LinkedIn under my full name, Monica Sharma Platniger. And I would say download the guide and get started. Let me know what you learned from it. Love to hear it. And when you download the guide, you'll be on my email list where I give a lot of inspiration and actionable insights as well, to help you get going.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. Thank you for being
But
here.
thank you so much for having me.